While Joe Biden was giving his address commemorating and recognizing the massacre in Tulsa, which we're going to talk about later on the program, he also finally seemed to indicate an understanding of some of the political opposition to his agenda, which does not just come in the form of Republicans. So here he is almost criticizing by name some of the Democrats who are stopping most of his agenda from making it through the Senate.
Today, as for the act of voting itself, I urge voting rights groups in this country to begin to redouble their efforts now to register and educate voters. And in June should be a month of action on Capitol Hill. I hear all the folks on TV saying, why doesn't Biden get this done? Well, because Biden only has a majority of effectively 4 votes in the House and a tie in the Senate, with 2 members of the Senate who vote more with my Republican friends. But we're not giving up.
Well, we're going to evaluate that we're not giving up thing. And so 2 members of the Senate that vote more with our friends, stop calling them your friends. They're not your friends. They want you to fail. Your whole life's dream, they want it to go down in flames. If those are your friends, you need to get yourself some new friends. And in some of the news coverage of this, JR, there's people saying like, well, they don't technically vote more with the Republicans, they vote with, yeah, okay, whatever, it doesn't matter. That's not the issue. They stop things from even making it to a vote by allowing the filibuster to continue or outright opposing the actual bill. So it's not that we can't get the For the People Act just because Manchin won't reform the filibuster. He doesn't support the act either. So yeah, he does. They don't vote on literally everything against him. They're stopping the most important stuff. Shut up. Stop being so immature.
That's the whole point. That's the whole point about this. It's supposed to disrupt the actual message that the things that Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin are doing, not that they're voting directly against Biden and his agenda, which partially they are, but not that they're voting directly against it. But the fact is that they're not doing the steps that will allow the Democrats and his agenda to have some kind of footing in it. So we know that the Republicans are continuously blocking everything blindly, no matter what, just to make things horrible because they're upset about losing. And once they're doing that, then if you just allow them to do it and let them run the government from a minority position, that's kneecapping your own agenda. Let's keep it real. Yes, maybe the words weren't exactly right with that, but that's now allowing us to talk about, oh, well, technically, are they actually voting against him? Listen, we're dealing with an ex-president that still has an entire party telling him that he won an election. Are we gonna keep pointing that out? Maybe tell him to shut up and get off of news waves? Yes, they tried that, but he's still talking. So when we're talking about nitpicking with little details like that, but we have this huge lie coming from the former president and this active lie coming from people who are still active members and elected members of the party, I don't think we need to talk about those little differences. But we do need to talk about the fact that these 2 that he called out, no, they're not voting against him every time, but they are facilitating people who are.
Exactly. Let's evaluate that video. It's driven a lot of headlines. Is he criticizing Manchin and Sinema? Well, look, he won't even name them. Does that matter? I mean, everybody knows who he's talking about. So does it matter that he doesn't name them? It's all this big. Okay, so why? Why does it matter?
It matters because, listen, it goes back to the same idea when he went with the my friends on the other side, and you said they're not your friends, they're fighting against you. So if you don't point out the 2 people who are the ones that are essentially blocking legislation in your agenda and the things that the majority of American people want, let's get beyond just it being Biden's agenda. But these aspects, there's things that Biden wants to do that many Americans, many progressives aren't cool with. But there are some things that Biden is now doing that he's been influenced to do that many progressives have been pushing him to do, and now he's leaning that direction. And of course, you're gonna get pushback from establishment from both sides of the aisle. So we do need to point out that they're assisting the opposition to do these things. Call them out, say them by name. If we don't say them by name, the people who aren't paying that close of attention will be like, oh, look, again, because this is the way the layman approach is, because this is how I was in like 2000 when I didn't vote in the presidential election I could. I was like, oh, it doesn't matter, it's all the same. I didn't care who the next guy was and who the Speaker of the House was and who the minority leader was, all that stuff. And I wasn't the most clueless political person, I just didn't care that much. So if you don't call them out by name, you just go, oh, there's 2 people. They'll be like, oh, which 2 people are those? I don't know the 100 senators. I don't know the 50 Democratic senators that are on here. No one, no one knows that, but the majority of people in the country, I feel, don't know that. And if they listen to you talk about Tulsa, which might bring them to your speech, now you have more ears and more eyes.
Exactly.
Call out the people as who they are.
Yeah, especially when, I mean, a line could be drawn from, this racial violence to the filibuster, which has been used to fight against civil rights for a century now. So those who are upholding it, they are a continuing part of a tradition that goes back a long way in American politics, but that is 10 steps beyond anything that Biden is willing to say. So we're gonna turn to how this is likely to play out in the future in a minute. I just want to focus briefly on the other part of what he said, which is people say, Joe Biden, why aren't you doing this? Hey man, I only got 4 people in the House and it's a 50-50. Okay, so first of all, you're the president, stop whining. Seriously, like don't man, it would be great to have more stuff. Okay, but this is what you have. So what are you gonna do? And the thing is, like there are political realities. It's possible that even if he deployed every possible recommendation that like he gets Nina Turner in the room and she tells him exactly how to go at Joe Manchin or whatever, maybe it fails. Okay, then if we're supposed to give you credit by understanding these political realities that hamper you or whatever, okay, but the thing is we're going to evaluate the other stuff about you that you have more direct control over. So can Joe Manchin stop some of this legislation? Sure. I mean, he's stopping it without you really putting a cost on him for doing that. So I'm still gonna judge you, but what about all the stuff you could be doing via executive order? Like that you could easily do yourself. It doesn't matter if you only have 4 in the House and it's a 50-50 Senate. You could absolve student loan debt right now, but you're not doing that either. And it's not to say that he's not doing anything. We're not the ridiculous grifters who can't see reality. Like we're gonna give him credit on a couple things later on this show. But if you're not willing to do that stuff, then well, come on, just have faith and give me a little bit more time as I waste more and more weeks working with Joe Manchin. I start to wonder how honest and serious you're actually being when in these areas where you have direct 100% control, you're not actually doing it.
Yeah, we're getting some shades of Obama's first term, in the first half of his first term. So, and again, Joe Biden was there. So I wonder, this is the only question, this is the last hope I'm holding out for him as far as this part of the issue, is he's given a certain amount of time, maybe he has an internal deadline. And he's like, now I'm gonna ratchet up to the level of, I'm gonna call them out without calling them out. Okay, fine, it's not the route I would go, but maybe you wanna give them a warning. Hey, I'm on the verge of saying your name, which, why is that such a big deal? Because that's their name and that's what they're doing. And every time Joe Manchin goes in front of a camera and likes to talk to reporters about how he's not gonna disrupt the system and destroy the Senate and all that stuff, he puts his name and his face on that. He says that and it's pretty deplorable. So why can't you say what he's doing from another perspective about what he's doing? He's saying what he's doing. Why can't I say what he's doing? So it's not even that big of a deal to put a name on it, but hopefully maybe there's some endpoint where he's like, okay, before you ruin my whole first term, and then we go into these midterms and people run against me based off me doing nothing. And then progressives now turned on me too because I've still done nothing. Let me give this maybe deadline. It's been a few months. Maybe he's looking for a summertime. Maybe he's looking for the end of summertime before he decides.
How about the 4th of July?
More. Yeah, there's always these hanging like parts of the summer. Memorial Day, 4th of July, then August because of the recess when everyone in Congress just leaves for a month, because that's great. Let's not forget about that part either. Maybe before the August recess.
Maybe. For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.